With reality, and in this performance video and tutorial video I'll be both showing you the trick known as transposition and also how to do it. It's quite a nice easy trick to do. I'll start by saying there's not many difficult moves. It's definitely one I'd start by doing because it's got quite a nice effect. You can drag it out with a nice story, and if you just sort of do it slowly, let it sort of sink in, that can probably be a lot more powerful of an effect. I don't do that. I speak quite fast, and to be honest I'm used to doing much longer tricks. So then you do want to speak fast because just give it more of an instant impact, but this will go very nicely if you just sort of take your time and sort of let it just sort of hit them. It's what I'll get into the trick in a second about the effect and everything later on. But I'll start just by showing you the trick. So it can be done with two people or one person. I'll do it as though it's to one person, and in this case I'll need to pick my own card. So say in this case the Ace of Spades. If there's two people, the first person will pick a card which will replace the Ace of Spades, and the second person will pick one. But in this case I'll pick my own, the Ace of Spades, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stick it on the top so you can see it. They can go through the deck, you can actually give the deck a shuffle. I'll just give it a cut for now to demonstrate that it can be in any order. So I'm going to place my card on the top of the Ace of Spades, and you can pick your favourite card, so just take any card you would like. So in this case, if it was the Two of Hearts, no, I'll make it slightly different, the Seven of Hearts. Okay, so you've got my favourite card, the Ace of Spades, okay, and your favourite card, the Seven of Hearts, okay, so that's what we're doing. And what I'm going to do, okay, is I'm actually going to take your card, the Seven of Hearts, and I'm actually going to turn it face down, and I'm actually going to stick it about in the middle of the deck, near the bottom it should do, face down. And the reason for that is so that later on it should be easier to find, because of course it will be the opposite way from the other cards, so it'll be fairly easy to find. So if I just push it in just like that, that should be fine. And now what I'm going to try and do is take my favourite card, the Ace of Spades, and actually make it swap with your card, the Seven of Diamonds. So your face down card in the middle of the deck, the Seven of Diamonds, should become the Ace of Spades face down. And this Ace of Spades I'm currently holding should become, hopefully, the Seven of Diamonds. And that's what should happen. They should swap position, and that's basically what I'm aiming for. It's a fairly difficult thing to try and do, but let's give it a go. Okay, so I'm actually going to set the deck down right here. Okay, so not holding anything in my right hand. And what I'm going to do is take this spade, okay, and spin around. Okay, so I'm just going to spin around, just like that, and you'll see instantly that it actually turned into the Seven of Hearts I'm holding. And what that will mean, okay, is that in the deck, okay, it should actually be, if I go through it, an opposite direction Ace of Spades, face up Ace of Spades, in the face down deck. And the two cards did indeed swap positions. And that's pretty much the trick. Like I said, the way I did it probably doesn't have much of an effect to it. But if I was to do it slowly, sort of let it sink in about how it changed position, swap, sorry, and how that became the middle of the deck, it can be very powerful. And there's not many difficult moves to it actually. It's very surprising. So that's the trick. Now I'll get on to tutorial. I'll do it from behind because most of the action is sort of from where I'm looking, from behind the deck. So I'll get into that now. Okay, so now this is how it's done. I'm doing a behind the view sort of thing because, like I said earlier, most of it sort of looks from behind. That's sort of probably how it's best to sort of show how it works. So you can do it from two different people if you want, or one person. If it's one person, I'm using my card, in this case the Ace of Spades. If you're doing it to two separate people, one person picks one card and the other person will pick the other, and it's the same sort of deal really. They swap positions. One will just replace the role of the Ace of Spades. So what you want is you want the deck face up, and you can go through the deck. It can be an ordinary deck, shuffle, which is the good thing about it. You can pick out any card you want, your favourite card, and put it on the top, in my case the Ace of Spades. And then you go through the deck again and ask them to pick out their favourite card. So ask them to pick out any card they would like. So in this case it's the Three of Diamonds. Actually I'll use the Seven of Hearts because that's what was used in their performance. So go through the deck, take out the Seven of Hearts. So say if that was their favourite card. Now what you do is you take it, and while you've taken it out, or they've taken it out, you want to break underneath the Ace of Spades. So what you do is, while you're holding it, push off the Ace of Spades, just the Ace of Spades, the top card, with your thumb. Push it up with your finger, pull it back with your thumb, and what you've done is you've actually got now a little gap under the Ace of Spades right here. So I'll show you again. You can just push off, push up with your fingers, bring it back, and just stick your finger in there, just sort of keep a little gap underneath it. Apply pressure at the front down with your first finger, just so that from the front it looks perfectly clean. You don't want a sort of a gap at the front from your break, because then it's obvious you've got a break there. Sort of have a fairly small sort of gap with the first finger, keep the front of the deck flat, and then what you do is you place their card on top, leaving that gap there. So you've now basically got a break underneath the top 2 cards, and from the front it looks perfectly fine. So you sort of have it down like that, you've got your break there, and then what you want to do is come across with your other hand, okay, and with your other thumb you sort of pull up the top 2 cards, so above the break, pull up both cards, and what you want to do is with the thicker part of your thumb and with your back 2 fingers, so the little finger and the ring finger, just pull it up, not by much, only about 7mm to a centimetre, not much at all, and just sort of apply pressure on the left and right of the cards. So sort of pull it up, apply pressure at the back, and again pull down with your first finger, only gently, not much, just to keep it flat at the front, because you don't want a sort of gap showing there like that, because it can be obvious. So now you've got a fairly largish sort of gap at the back, just like that. Again, from the top you can't see anything at all. And then with your left thumb you just peel off the top card, their card, leaving that gap there. So that's a nice way, without putting the deck down, without sort of having to let go of the deck or their card, to get that gap there. Because if you're sort of holding that card there like that and then you're sort of trying to pull up the ace of spades and get that gap there, that's not good. So by just sort of putting it on top, doing it with both cards, peeling off theirs, that's a nice way to get into the right position. Then you turn over their card and say you're putting it into the deck face down in the opposite direction of the rest of the cards, just to make it sort of stand out, easy to find. And what you're doing is you're sticking in the card, you're sort of poking around the bottom here, just sort of like that, sort of pushing out cards from the bottom so they stick out at the front, just as a convincer that you are looking as though you're putting it near the bottom. So you just poke out some cards. And then what you do is you put their card into this gap at the bottom, so lay it just, in this case, lay it just on top of the 7 of spades, just flush with the 7 of spades. So I'll exaggerate the gap a bit more just now so you can see. What you do is you sort of lay it on top of the 7 of spades, just like that. So you lay it just clean on top at the bottom of the gap, and again apply pressure to their card with your thumb and little finger, leaving the ace of spades raised. So you've now got pressure, so you can now let go, and just as a convincer that it is into the deck, as though there is a weight on top of it keeping it in. And then what you do is you just sort of push in a little by a bit, just as though there is pressure on the card, just like that, as a nice convincer. Like I said, this is an exaggerated gap, and then all you do is just release tension on the ace of spades and let it drop, and square up the deck. Okay, so what it looked like is you've then got both cards, you get the gap under both, peel off theirs, you turn it over, and you sort of poke around the bottom, stick out a few cards, stick it in this gap, face down, just like that. Apply a little bit of pressure onto their cards so you can let go, push it in, just like that. And it's best if you actually tilt the whole deck slightly face up by about 30 degrees while you're doing this, just to make it even more clear, because just to give that depth perception that much more emphasis, because it does look a lot better when it's when the deck's slightly angled up from them. So you push it in and then just release tension on the ace of spades and let it drop, square up the deck, and then you're clean. So it looks like you've placed their card face down in the middle of the deck. Don't of course dribble, because that can give away that it's near the top. So it looks like you've put it in the middle of the deck when really it's only in the second position just under the ace of spades. So now what you do is you get a break underneath the top 2 cards again. You can do this by doing sort of picking up with your thumb about like 5 cards and just sort of counting and just looking until you see 2 in your thumb. Peel off a little bit more till you can see the gap by your finger, and then let go. Okay, so you sort of get a bunch, count and look just for a second till you see 2, put a little bit more till it just breaks that pinky gap, and then let go. So do that very quickly. That's one way to get a break under the top 2 cards. You can do the pinky count, which is when you sort of count with your little finger and sort of count down 2 cards. That's something you can do until you count down 2 cards. Or you can just sort of push off the top 5 cards or so, not by much, so you've only got sort of a very small difference between them, because of course the face down and face up cards, that they have got a white border. So if you push it off just by that border as much, you should be able to see 2 cards without flashing the red. And then you can just sort of push back them 2 cards, square up the deck, and get a break underneath the top 2 cards. Or you can just sort of, with your left thumb, just sort of feel for 2 cards really, and get a break under the top 2 cards again. And then what you do is you come across with the other hand, your thumb by the break, by your finger, and the middle finger in the opposite corner by the end of your thumb. Pick up both cards above the breaks. You've actually now got 2 cards here. Okay, one face up, one face down, and the one face down is theirs. So holding that together, and what I like to do is just to keep them together and make it look like one card, is I like to sort of push down slightly with my first finger, giving it a nice bend, and apply very slight pressure with the middle finger and thumb, giving it a very slight bend to it. And what that does, if it's together, you can sort of sometimes see a gap in between them if there's a slight bend to the cards, if they're used cards like these ones. You can sort of give them both a bend in the same direction. What that does is it will force the two cards together, just so that it looks like one card more. The pressure sort of keeps them together much more, so it does look like one card. And also, it's a convincer for later on, because when all you're doing is when you turn around, you need to wait, sort of hold it up against your chest. Okay, so you hold it up against your chest, and once you've spun around at the 180 degree mark, so when they're exactly looking at your back and they can't see the cards, all you're doing is coming across with your first finger and very quickly, just spinning around the card. Okay, pivoting it around the middle finger and thumb. So you're coming across, spinning around the card just like that, and then you do the same thing. You push down with your first finger and apply some pressure to give it a bend. So that's what you're doing. So you're holding up to your chest doing the story. You're about to spin around. All you do is once you're at the 180 degree mark and you're looking away from them, you just spin it and do that, and that's it. And the reason why I like to do pressure is both to keep them together, and also, say if you had this pressure here like that and you spun it round like that, if the pressure's up, it's clear it's spun round, because they can see that the arc used to be down and afterwards it's up, so they can see it's maybe spun around 180 degrees, which you just did. Whereas if it's got a bend face down, and then afterwards it's got a bend face down, it's just much more convincing that it didn't spin, because if it did spin, they'd expect it to afterwards be face up, or bent up. But because it's bent down, it just sort of reduces the risk of them thinking you've spun it round. And it also helps in keeping the cards together, so that's just a bonus. And so yeah, you should keep a nice bend in it face down, spin it round with your first finger if you want, because you can have the problem sometimes of your middle finger sort of slipping down and then you can't spin it round, because of course you want your middle finger there as a pivot, so you can sort of use your other two fingers just to sort of help out on this corner and sort of keep it pivoting around the middle finger, and then get that pressure down so it's bent down, and that's pretty much it. You want a nice flow to the spin. You don't want to spin around halfway, stop, spin it, and then carry on spinning, because it makes it clear you've actually done something during the spin. If you just keep a nice fast flow to it and it's done cleanly, they won't think that you've done anything to the card. It will be as literally as though it's just happened on its own. You haven't done anything, because it was done in that instant that they didn't see it. So that's something else. Just sort of keep a nice flow to it. Turn around, show them that it's changed to their card, the Seven of Hearts, and then what you do is come across with the deck face up, place both cards on the deck cleanly. You want it to be clean because you don't want to flash the face down Ace of Spades. And then all you want to do is just give the deck a cut, just like that, and then turn over the deck, go through the cards and show the Ace of Spades has taken its place. Because of course, if I actually go back to where I was, you place the two cards down. You can do a more discreet sort of pass to sort of disguise the cut if you want to, but if you don't want to do that, you can pretty much just give the deck. Oh, I lost Seven of Hearts. Where is it? Was that Seven of Hearts? No, it's not Seven of Hearts. Okay. 1 second. Alright, so okay, don't know how I got there. You can pretty much just give it a cut, because of course at the moment the spade's face down. Just give it a cut, and then turn over the cards fairly quickly, and then just go through and show how it's faced up. And that's pretty much the trick. It's not that much of a long one. It's fairly short, but if you were to give it a nice story, sort of make it slow so that the sort of changes sort of sink in more and give it a nice stronger effect, that can be very powerful, and it can become very powerful if done right. So that's pretty much the trick. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. It's a very good trick, transposition. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.